Shoppers are being warned they may have to swallow record high butter prices for some time yet. The cost of a block of butter has shot up by nearly 2/3 in the past year due to a rising appetite globally for the spread as well as falling supply. Analysts say New Zealand's dry weather may curb milk production and keep dairy prices firm. Our economics correspondent, Patrick O'Mara, has a look at butter.
The rise in butter prices has been painful for Simon Galt, the owner of Giraffe Restaurant in Auckland's Viaduct.
They're horrific. It's frightening, the level of increase. 62% on butter in the last 12 months is making it difficult in the restaurant for sure.
Simon Galt says it's enough to force a change to his menu.
I've got one dish where we make a smoked kahawai and turmeric butter. Now that has thrown my food cost to a cost to me of 70%. So every one of those I sell, I'm losing money on. So you literally got to take it off the menu because the cost of putting that price up will mean that I've got empty seats at the end of the day, and I want a full restaurant.
Wellington's Nade Bakery churns through 75 to 100 kilos of butter every week, and its general manager Michael Gray says it's his one essential ingredient.
Everything from shortbread through to brioche, eclairs, pastry of course, cakes, muffins. It does touch on pretty much every part of our business in some form.
Mr Gray received a letter just a month ago advising him his butter bill would jump another 8%. While he's economising where he can, he's also having to pass some of the cost on to customers.
It's like a gold brick at the moment, and that's the value that we're putting on it, and we hope that at the end of the day the industry out there is putting the same value on it and the consumers are too.
Retail butter prices hit a record high in October, with shoppers paying $5.67 for the cheapest 500-gram block, compared to $3.50 a year earlier. And New Zealand consumers are not alone. In Britain, prices have jumped by 18% in the last year. Across the Channel, France's supermarkets have been experiencing severe shortages. Butter prices are fixed annually there, prompting producers to sell their butter abroad instead. At one Wellington supermarket, shoppers expressed astonishment at how much they now paid for a block of Anchor butter that was on special.
Excuse me. Hi, this is Sniper Radio New Zealand. Look, I'm just asking people about the price of butter and how much you think this is worth.
Crikey, I've got to buy some too. Making Christmas cakes today.
So how much do you reckon it is for 500 grams?
It's about $3.50.
How about if I told you $6?
Oh my gosh. That's quite a lot, isn't it?
No, it's probably more than I'm really happy to pay, but what can you do?
It's borderline essential.
Yeah, do you think so? Do you think you can swap it for something?
If you're baking.
If you're baking, butter is way better than anything else. But for as a butter on toast or whatever, then there are other spreads. So it's borderline.
$4.50? $6.
No way.
I think they're over $5 at the moment.
$6 on special for this.
Okay, scary.
Well, it's quite expensive considering it all comes from New Zealand.
The two players which control the supermarket trade, Countdown and Foodstuffs, refused to be interviewed about butter prices, referring RNZ to butter producers for comment. Fonterra, whose brands include Anchor and Mainland, declined to talk, and the industry body, the Dairy Companies Association of New Zealand, did not return calls. But rising prices are a mix of stronger global demand and shrinking supply. Certainly, butter is enjoying a comeback. The Consumer Prices Manager at Stats NZ, Matthew Haig, says the latest research indicates butter is not as bad for you as previously made out.
Butter used to be the bad guy, and I think people over the last couple of years have heard the message that saturated fats perhaps aren't quite as bad in moderation as previously thought. Attention's switched more to sugar. So that's given people permission to feel they can buy butter again.
Surprisingly, stronger butter prices has not prompted dairy producers to hike production. An honorary professor of agribusiness at Lincoln University, Keith Woodford, says to understand what's happening in the butter market, people need to look at skim milk powder. That's because for every kilo of butter, 2 kilograms of skim milk powder is produced, and a depressed market for the latter means it's not worth cranking up butter production.
The processors are choosing not to simply because they end up with a whole lot of skim milk powder, which is selling at very depressed prices. And when the processor looks at the total package of butter plus skim milk powder, then typically that processor says, no, I won't produce any more butter. I'll use the milk for totally different products.
In New Zealand, dairy companies are shifting towards higher value-added dairy products such as cheese and long-life liquid cream to meet the rising demand from Asia. Nevertheless, there are signs butter is starting to cool. Global prices have fallen by a quarter from over $6,000 a tonne 2 months ago to $4,500. Keith Woodford says it appears some of the big food manufacturers are now using butter alternatives.
There are options. Probably the one that people don't like to hear is the one about palm oil, which is just ubiquitous and does fit very well into a large range of food products. You know, it's all a matter of taste, and there's always going to be people that say butter is a much better product, but the big manufacturers, they would say, well, we can get around that, and at the margin, that's what's happening at the moment.
Stats NZ's Matthew Haig says it may take another 3 to 4 months for softer prices to filter through to supermarket shelves as previous butter contracts run out. But he warns the reprieve for butter lovers may be short-lived, with the risk of drought likely to result in lower milk production and higher feed costs.
There could be more to come as well, like obviously anyone who looks out the window and sees the dry grass will see that we've switched from a big wet to a big dry, and that might have an impact on production over the next few months.
Back in the supermarket aisles, shoppers seem resigned to putting up with higher prices rather than swallow the alternatives.
I'm definitely going to get some butter, yeah.
Yeah, because it tastes better. That's the idea.
Well, you know, if you're putting all the effort into baking something like a Christmas cake, you really want the best ingredients, so yeah.
Probably not just yet, because we're into natural, the natural products.
No, I still like butter, yeah. No, you can't substitute it. We have butter all the time at our flat kind of thing, so.
Well, we do use margarine, but I'd rather go back to butter.
For Checkpoint, Patrick O'Mara.